Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to do ribs. These are pork spare ribs. They are basically what you use to get St. Louis style spare ribs. This is the whole spare rib, and to make St. Louis style spare ribs, you just kind of square it up and cut off the end of it, which is basically like the rib tips. So the first thing we're going to do is get this thing cut open and drain some of the juices out so it doesn't end up all over me and my cutting board. All right, so we're just draining out, some of the blood and some of the juices just to try and reduce the mess. And then we just open this slab up. Spare ribs are my favorite food. This rack weighs 6.9 pounds, so right at 7 pounds. And you just want to dry it off really well with some paper towels. Flip it over, get the other side. Now you can see down through here all the fat and marbling mixed in there with that meat. That's the good stuff. All right, flip them back over. Now there is a membrane that runs on top of the bones, if you can see it right there. So basically, you just take your knife, get in there, prop it up, and then get your paper towels, and then just grab it, and you just peel it right off. Just like that, that goes in the trash. Now, come in here close, babe. For normal ribs, like if you go to a barbecue restaurant, they take their knife and they cut all of this off to square it up. And some restaurants take the meat that's left and throw it in their beans. Some mix it in with their pulled pork. It just depends. But we're just going to trim up some of this fat. But we are going to leave all of that on and make a true spare rib, not a St. Louis style. Like I said, the St. Louis style is where they trim it all up and square it up. It does help when it's squared up to make it cook a little more evenly, but as long as you're watching it and keeping an eye on it, it's fine. I say, why not eat it? It's meat, it's rib meat. It just doesn't look as good as a perfectly squared off rack of ribs. And I'm more about flavor than looks. So you just want to get some of this excess fat off. These ribs have plenty of fat down in there. You don't have to worry about leaving some on. Get a little bit more of this. Now I'm doing these different today than I've ever done. I like my ribs fall off the bone. A lot of people don't. A lot of people like to be able to bite into the rib, and when you pull back, you've got that bite mark in the rib. They're fine that way. I don't dislike them that way. But normally when I make ribs, I cook them at 225 and it takes 6 to 7 hours. Today, I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna smoke them at 275 for about 4 hours, and I'm only gonna do a dry rub, no sauce. So if you watch the pulled pork video, just use mustard as a binder. Don't worry, you won't taste it. This is just to hold the rub on. Now, down through here where you see all these bones, you don't really have to worry about getting much rub on that because you're not gonna eat the bones. But right here, this is all meat, so you want to get it pretty good with the rub. Now, This is the same rub I use on all pork. It is Meat Church's Honey Hog. And then I also hit it with a little bit of my all-purpose rub, which is salt, pepper, and garlic. Get that on there. Now we're gonna flip them and do the same thing to the other side. Now this one slab would easily feed 3 people, probably 4, by not cutting off the excess and squaring it up to make it St. Louis style. About out of my rub, had to order some more. Now these will not get any sauce at all. All right, now that's it. They're ready for the smoker. They will go directly on the grate, bone side down for about 4 hours. I'll start checking them in about 3.5 hours, but I fully expect it to take 4 to 4.5 hours at 275. And when we get close to that point, I'll show you how I check for doneness, because I mean, it's pork. So FDA recommends, you know, pork is done and safe to eat at 145 degrees. But for good, moist, tender ribs, you need that fat to melt down. So we are going to take these to about 200 to maybe even 205 degrees to make sure that fat renders and we get nice, moist, tender ribs. So we're going to take these, put them out on the smoker right now. All right, so as you can see, smoker is at 271. It's set for 275. It'll get up there in just a minute. We're just going to slide them off. Put the lid down. I'll probably come back in about 3 hours just to check, see how they are, but I fully expect it to take 4 to 4.5 hours. So we'll be back and forth here and there with you on some updates and let you see how they look as they come along. Stay with us. All right, ribs have been on right about 3 hours at 275. We're just gonna take a look. I'm gonna put my temperature, my instant read temperature gauge in there and just see where they're at. I know they've probably got at least another hour to go, maybe an hour and a half, but I just wanna give them a look, see how they're doing. See, starting to get a little pullback from the bone. That's a little fat and shrink it up. Now, let's just see. You see, these are at 172, 73. We could eat these right now. They're not going to be as tender as you want, but it wouldn't kill you. Now we get in here where it's a little bit thicker. It should be a little cooler. There. All right, they're coming along nicely. We're just going to leave them there. We'll check them in about an hour and see how they do. We'll do the bend test where you basically stick your tongs up long ways and you want them to bend but not break, and that's about perfect. But this thing never lies. Once it's going in and out, super smooth, no resistance, then you know they're done. So we'll be back in a little while to get them off the smoker and try them and have dinner. All right, it's been about 4 hours and 20 minutes. Time to get these ribs off, see how they look. I'm pretty sure they're going to be done. So, oh yeah, look at that color. All right, so now you see down in here, it's pulled up from the bone. We call that they're showing their teeth. And that's one way to know that they're getting close to being done. Now, the bend test, you can do these with baby backs or spare ribs, but you just kind of pick them up, and that's what you want. You want them to bend and stress at the top, but not break. So these are done. We'll get them in the house. We'll let them rest about 10 minutes before we start cutting them.
What's the purpose of that?
You want to let the juices redistribute back into the meat. You want them to cool down a little bit. If I start cutting them right now, all the juice is going to run out and be all over the cutting board and not as juicy in our mouth as we eat them.
Got it.
That's one of the reasons I like spare ribs instead of baby back ribs. For one, they're a lot bigger, but you get a lot more meat on spare ribs, and there's not as much tendency for them to dry out because they are bigger and meatier and more fatty. Baby backs are okay, spare ribs are the way to go. Prices are always about the same, so I'm going spare ribs every time. So let's go in the house, get these cut up, and see what we think. All right, now we're gonna cut into these, see what we got. Now, as you can see, the bones kind of run diagonal. So the best way to do it is just kind of stand them up and then just run your knife along that bone. Now, by doing the entire spare rib, you get all of that meat, where the normal rib would stop about right there. At a restaurant, that's what you would get, but see, we're getting all this extra. There's a little bit of extra cartilage in there. You know, these end pieces, you know, they're the thinnest, so they get a little overdone. And get down there to the bottom, kind of falling off the bone. See if I can cut this one. Here's that one. Should be right here. All right, so now when you have this full spare rib, so you can come right here and you can cut that off, and then now it makes it a lot easier to eat. But that's all normally cut off and thrown away at a restaurant, that piece right there. Same thing with this one. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's all good meat. It's just, they want it squared up and pretty, so when they put it in the box or put it on your plate, it looks good.
I don't care what it looks like. Just care what it tastes like.
And here's another one. So we come right there, right after that joint. Cut that off. And see, that's what you get at a restaurant. Squared up, nice and pretty. And then these good pieces usually get thrown away. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever done them this way, where it's just $2.75 for 4 hours. Usually what I do is I put my rub on, I put them in there at $2.25 for 3 hours, and then I take them out, I wrap them in foil, and in that foil I put butter, honey, and brown sugar. Wrap them in foil, put them back on the smoker for 2 hours, and then take them off, cover them in sauce, and put them back on for another hour. That's how I normally do it. That's called the 3-2-1 method. If you have any questions about it, you can just look it up. You can look up ribs 3-2-1, and it'll give you instructions on how to do it. Very easy. You can't mess them up. It's foolproof, but in all, it takes about 6 hours. So we did these in about 4 hours. So this is the very end, so you get other bones and stuff coming in right there. So you can pick the meat off of this, but you can't really cut it into ribs. All right, camera lady. Good? Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's make some plates and let me try a piece.
Very moist. It's got great flavor.
That's good. No sauce. Just a little rub, a little smoke.
Time for dinner.
That'll work just fine. So we're going to eat dinner, and
See you on the next one.
please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, sign up for notifications, tell all your friends, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.